Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess. So I just recorded episode 61, and in a bit of an experiment, I'm not going to lie, I liked episode 60 being cut into two. I'm sad that the first part is lost forever to the ether. um, so I'm going to kind of do 61 and 62 together. In a way, I just recorded 61, like I said, a week late on the last podcast, and 62 is just going to be called Hope. Or maybe even just Finding Hope. We'll go with Finding Hope. And today, once again, I know inspiration strikes when it will. And I received an email. It's a Buddhist publication called Tricycle. I've kind of been back on Buddhism lately. I go round and around. I go Christianity, read a little Judaism and Islam. I go a little bit to Hinduism. I like the stories in Hinduism for sure. And I always somehow come back to Buddhism. And I think I like it because it's the most simple and straightforward. It's really hard to stomach because it is so simple. It's just, hey, here it is. Get with the program, or take the tractor another round, go see Christianity and all the others again. But I always come back to it, and there's just something about this email I was reading. It says 3 teachings on finding hope, and they do a weekly email called the 3 teachings, and I read the articles most often. I subscribed a little bit earlier this year, and I find it useful. And so I've been reading a lot of these posts when they come out, I think every Thursday. And the one today just struck me. So it said 3 teachings on finding hope, but the title, kind of the heading here, says don't despair. And I'll read this, and then I'll go through the 3 articles. It's, again, a little experimental. It's going to be less me talking and my thoughts and more just reading things that I think will be helpful from these articles. Maybe a little bit as a reminder to myself. Maybe helpful some way to you who's listening. Who knows? But yeah, the title of this is Don't Despair. If you were to tell anyone you were feeling hopeless these days, you'd probably be met with nods of empathy regardless of the source of your despair. With so much division, uncertainty, and suffering in the social, economic, and political climate, to say nothing of the environmental climate, hopelessness feels like a valid response. The scale and pace of it all is overwhelming. You could forgive anyone for feeling paralyzed. But hopelessness doesn't help. Fortunately, the Buddhist principles of interdependence and impermanence can restore hope and inspire action, reminding us that change on an individual level isn't just powerful, but essential. And an embrace of the unknown opens us to possibility instead of fear, tempering despair and strengthening the will. This week's 3 teachings offer 3 different routes to restoring hope rooted in Buddhist wisdom. And those teachings are as follows. These articles also, I read through them briefly just now. I will preface this by saying they were published at very important times in my spiritual journey. When I read through them earlier and just looked at the timing of them, I found it to be, just very... I'm about to say a word, and I'm not entirely sure if it fits, but I'm pretty sure it does. It's going back to the SAT. Poignant. They feel poignant, evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. It says, or also sharp or pungent in taste or smell. And I think the sadness that I feel, by the way, the word's accurate. I think the sadness that I feel is really just compassion for the despair that I felt. in those times. So when I looked at the timing of them, just something in me just felt like this was the right thing to do for this episode of the podcast. Based on that sadness, just to honor all the hardship I went through, and honor myself for making it through, and genuinely where I'm at now, making the best of it and pushing forward so that I can be the best version of myself and of service to others now and in the future. So the first article, the kind of tab on the internet, on the Google Chrome, says "How Not to Despair," but the magazine title says "On Hardship and Hope: 2 Teachings to Instill Inspiration When We Feel Paralyzed by Despair." So, on hardship, I am actually going to, no, this is pretty long, but it'll be worth it. On the long voyage of life, there are times when the sun shines with the warmth and brightness of a spring day. There are other times, like bitter winter nights, when we must battle the freezing cold. Periods of hardship, we might say, are the winter nights of life. Some people encounter their worst hardships during their youth, and then, having successfully overcome them, go on to live in relative ease and happiness for the rest of their days. There are others who succeed in avoiding hardship during their youth, only to have it descend upon them in old age. In my case, I tried to experience what hardships I could in my youth, hoping that in the process of overcoming them, I could build a firm foundation for later life. Not that I had the slightest intention of going out of my way to invite unusual hardship or to be anything more than an ordinary human being. In fact, I realize there are untold numbers who have struggled and continue to struggle against far greater difficulties than I have. But because I had my share of sickness and poverty and other such worries, I can now in full measure sympathize with others who are sick or troubled. It is something I'm deeply thankful for. The spirit of Walt Whitman was that the more one had shivered in the cold, the better one can appreciate the warmth of the sun. The more troubles one has experienced in the world, the better one can understand the true value of human life. Indeed, winter never lasts forever. After the bitter struggles of winter is bound to come the sunshine of spring. The important thing is to never give in to hardship. In times of trial, one must learn to endure whatever may come and thereby strengthen and improve oneself. After all, it is only the person who's experienced the cold of winter who can savor and enjoy fully the warm sunshine of spring. The star that governs your destiny is in your own heart, another poet has said. There could be no doubt about it. Whatever one's circumstances, whatever one's past, the star of destiny, the forces that determine one's future, are nowhere but in one's own heart and mind. Regardless of what storms may blow, what anger waves may threaten, you must keep shining at all times with a pure, steady light. This is what I want to say to all the young people of today who are undergoing hardship, for depending on how you bear up under that hardship, the trials of today could turn out to be your most precious possessions. In my family, I had 4 elder brothers. Since all 4 were called into military service during World War II, I was left with many of the tasks and responsibilities that under ordinary circumstances would have been theirs. Our house was burned down in air raids, and though both my parents worked as hard as they could, tried not to burden their children, I naturally had to look out to some extent for my younger brothers and my little sister. Moreover, at that time, I was suffering from tuberculosis, and much of my strength was consumed simply in battling the disease. In any ordinary Japanese family today, a person in the condition I was in would, as a matter of course, be sent to a sanatorium for an extended period of treatment and rest. But in the years I'm speaking about, toward the end of the war and just after it, such a step was out of the question. Every day was a struggle for me. Toward evening, the low fever symptomatic of the disease would invariably come on. Then there was the cough, which never let up. How many times, even after I had gone to bed, it persisted, tormenting me so that I could hardly get to sleep. The doctor at one point said I would probably not last much past 23 or 24. After I went to work at the company my mentor owned, my health continued to be a constant source of worry for him, and he on one occasion confided to my parents that he did not think I would live to see 30. But I kept on day after day doing the best I could to carry out my job, strenuous though it was. I don't mean by this to sound as though I'm advising people to do anything foolish or to deliberately put an undue strain on their health, but as I look back at my own case, I have a feeling if I hadn't had the daily challenge of my job before me, my body might well have succumbed to the disease. Because I knew I had a job to do, both my body and my spirit rose to the challenge. Eventually, I regained my health. As Miguel de Cervantes wrote in Don Quixote, while there's life, there's hope. There are many times when my condition was so bad that I lost all courage and was on the point of resigning myself to death. But I would say to myself, I'm still alive, which means there's still hope. I would resolve to go on fighting. I know there must be any number of people in the world today much sicker than I ever was. I would appeal to such people to face their trials with a firm, undespairing heart and to never surrender in their battle with disease. And this applies not only to disease. No matter what kind of difficult situations one finds oneself in, some opportunity, some opening can always be found to fight one's way out. The important thing is to always have hope and to face the future bravely. I went to work at that job when I was 21. My job was editing a magazine, and for someone in my physical condition, it was hard work. But as I have already said, the fact that I had the work to challenge me each day turned out to be a blessing. I was also receiving intensive instruction and training from my mentor in a number of different subjects. Sometimes I would find myself being scolded by him with a fury that felt like 100 thunderbolts striking all at once, while at other times he would show me infinite gentleness and patience. I never had the slightest doubt that at heart he had deep faith in me, and that behind the scolding was his loving concern and desire to make me into a person of real worth, capable of doing any kind of work. For this reason, it was a boundless joy to work for him, and I never for a moment thought of giving up. A truly warm human relationship. How much in the way of hope and courage and conviction is capable of giving? It is not too much to say that, in the end, everything I have today I owe to the fact that I encountered such a great teacher who was willing to trust me without question. To be looked upon as trustworthy and reliable is surely one of the most valuable assets a person can have, regardless of occupation. And for a young person, to be trusted at work is of prime importance. If a young person does not learn to inspire trust in others, failure is almost certain. At present, they say, we are living in an age of irresponsibility. There's a tendency for people not only to disregard, but to be completely indifferent to the trust that others put in them. But so long as human society exists, it is patent that trustworthiness will continue to be of basic importance. Anyone who betrays this trust will be a social outcast, eventually having to taste the bitterness of defeat. Today, one may smugly flaunt in an irresponsible manner. In the end, nothing but grief will result. I believe it was a Japanese novelist who said, "One word from a person who is qualified to be trusted carries more weight than 10,000 words from someone who is not." Trust is hard to build up and easy to destroy. Trust that one has spent 10 years in nurturing can be wiped out in an instant by some little slip up in word or action. A pretentious, overconfident manner that tries to hide one's lack of reliability will quickly be exposed when a time of crisis arises. Those who work with all their might to carry out their mission will in the end win the trust of those around them. The type of person I respect most is one who, though he or she may be doing a rather inconspicuous, unexciting job, still does it conscientiously, advancing step by step and patiently working towards self-improvement. When I speak of the importance of inspiring trust, I certainly do not mean that one should be constantly choosing the safest course and trying to succeed at all costs. For a young person, this is a fatal error. On the contrary, the mistakes of one's youth are often far more important than we could ever guess in helping to build one's foundation for the future. Therefore, I hope to see young people do each day's work with courage, aware that they still have much to learn, but determined to do their best. The Irish novelist Oliver Goldsmith wrote, "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but rising every time we fall." I have forgotten the author, but the following words also come to mind. Words that have always moved me deeply. Failure, what is failure? It is not a constant occurrence in the world. Oh, is it not a constant occurrence in the world? And is it not the ladder to great accomplishment? Because of it, we gain a kind of experience we could never acquire from 10,000 books. Failure is the means by which heaven bestows happiness upon us. In truth, it is the greatest treasure of life. To lose heart because of one or two failures is the height of foolishness. Life is a long, long journey. No matter how wonderful a life you have lived, if in the end you find yourself defeated and unhappy, nothing could be more miserable. In youth, one should go forward with courage, understanding that the more often one fails, the firmer will be the foundation for one's future life and happiness. It is also necessary for young people to have the fearlessness to recognize their failures as failures and honestly take responsibility for them. This kind of attitude I find most admirable in young people. Above all, one must avoid the opposite tendency, refusing to recognize one's responsibility and, like a coward, trying to shift the blame to others. Finally, one must have the breadth of mind to consider the source of one's own failures and in a cool, objective manner to judge how and where one went wrong. For such judgment will serve as a source of future value. The sight of a young person striving to reach the goal he or she has set is one of the most powerful, most refreshing, most beautiful things in the world. Nowhere in the world is there a beauty to match that of a young person who has fought with and overcome hardship. And the second half is on hope. This is a lot shorter, by the way. That was way longer than I intended. But we're going to keep it moving because I'm liking it. So on hope. Looking at the world today is easy to feel despair. A kind of powerlessness seems to be the prevailing mood. Decisions about important issues all seem to be made somewhere beyond our reach. What can one person accomplish in the face of such vast forces that run our world? The current of the times can seem so fast-flowing and complex as to be overwhelming. I do not believe that people are powerless. The philosophical tradition that I embrace teaches concerning the most fundamental dimension, that of life itself, that each human life partakes of the limitless life force of the cosmos. The same power that moves through the universe exists within our lives. Each individual has immense potential, and a great change in the inner dimension of one individual's life has the power to touch others' lives and transform society. Everything begins with us. As Nigerian author and poet Ben Okri wrote in this poem, Mental Fight, you can't remake the world without remaking yourself. Each new era begins within. It is an inward event with unsuspected possibilities for inner liberation. The term my mentor used for this process of inner transformation that also transforms our surroundings was human revolution. And I believe it is the most fundamental, most vital of all revolutions. It can create changes that are a lot more lasting and valuable than political, economic, or technological revolutions. For no matter how external factors change, the world will never get better as long as people remain selfish and apathetic. An inner change for the better in a single person, one person becoming wiser, stronger, more compassionate, is the essential first turn of the wheel toward realizing peaceful coexistence and fulfillment for the whole human race. I firmly believe that a great human revolution in just one person can be the start of a transformation in the destiny of whole societies and all humankind. And for the individual, everything starts in the inner reaches of life itself. When we change our inner determination, everything begins to move in a new direction. The moment we make a powerful resolve, every nerve and fiber in our being will immediately orient itself toward the fulfillment of this goal or desire. On the other hand, if we think this is never going to work out, then every cell in our body will be deflated and give up the fight. Hope, in this sense, is a decision. It is the most important decision we can make. Hope changes everything, starting with our lives. Hope is the force that enables us to take action to make our dreams come true. It has the power to change winter into summer, barrenness into creativity, agony to joy. As long as we have hope, there's nothing we cannot achieve. When we possess the treasure of hope, we can draw forth our inner potential and strength. a person of hope can always advance. Hope is a flame that we nurture within our hearts. It may be sparked by someone else, by the encouraging words of a friend, relative, or mentor, but it must be fanned and kept burning through our own determination. Most crucial is our determination to continue to believe in the limitless dignity and possibilities of both ourselves and others. Gandhi led the nonviolent struggle for Indian independence from British colonial rule, succeeding against all odds. He was, in his own words, an irrepressible optimist. His hope was not based on circumstances, rising and falling as things seemed to be getting better or worse. Rather, it was based on an unshakable faith in humanity and the capacity of people for good. He absolutely refused to abandon his faith in his fellow human beings. Keeping faith in people's essential goodness and the consistent effort to cultivate goodness in ourselves, these are the twin keys, as Gandhi proved, to unleashing the great power of hope. Believing in ourselves and in others in this way, continuing to wage the difficult inner struggle to make this the basis for our actions, can transform a society that sometimes seemed to be plummeting towards darkness into a humane, enlightened world where all people are treated with respect. There may be times when confronted by cruel reality, we verge on losing all hope. If we cannot feel hope, it is time to create some. We can do this by digging deeper within, searching for even a small glimmer of light, for the possibility of a way to begin to break through the impasse before us. And our capacity for hope can actually be expanded and strengthened by difficult circumstances. Hope that has not been tested is nothing more than a fragile dream. Hope begins from this challenge, this effort to strive toward an ideal, however distant it may seem. It is far better to pursue a remote, even seemingly impossible goal than to cheat ourselves of the forward motion that such goals can provide. I believe that the ultimate tragedy in life is not physical death. Rather, it's the spiritual death of losing hope, giving up on our own possibilities for growth. My mentor once wrote, "In looking at the great people of the past, we find that they remained undefeated by life's hardships, by life's pounding waves. They held fast to hopes that seemed mere fantastic dreams to other people. They let nothing stop or discourage them from realizing their aspirations. The reason for this, I feel certain, is that their hopes themselves were not directed toward the fulfillment of personal desires of self-interest, but based on a wish for all people's happiness. And this filled them with extraordinary conviction and confidence." Here, he pointed to a crucially important truth. Real hope is found in committing ourselves to vast goals and dreams. Dreams such as a world without war and violence, a world where everyone can live in dignity. The problems that face our world are daunting in their depth and complexity. Sometimes it may be hard to see where or how to begin. But we cannot be paralyzed by despair. We must each take action toward the goals we have set and in which we believe. Rather than passively accepting things as they are, we must embark on the challenge of creating a new reality. It is in this effort that true, undying hope is to be found. And those are from selected essays of Daisaku Ikeda. And the book is called Hope is a Decision. The second one on hope is from 2005. And the first one on despair is 1967. So we're already 24 minutes in the episode. I'm not going to get to these other two, but I will say I'm going to quickly scroll through and see if there are any nuggets I can take out before we get out of here. Here's a good quote. "Having already freed myself of fault, hearing this, I am now also free from anxiety. Whether in a mountain valley or under the trees in a forest, whether sitting or walking around, I always thought about this matter and blamed myself completely, thinking, why have I cheated myself so? So I really like that. It basically talks about this sentence. So the experience of helplessness could take us beyond the limits of ourself. Core features of Dharma, which Dharma is just a way to talk about life, but point to helplessness as the transcendent experience, not as a moral failure or cause for shame or condition to be overcome through heroic feats of self-discipline. This is kind of what I was talking about in the last episode. So realizing that we are imperfect beings. There's no shame in being human. You don't have to be a god to overcome your humanness. Your failures are only true failures if you don't learn from it. So I like that. And last but not least, there's another article about taking refuge in the unknown. And I'm going to leave you with this. Cynicism doesn't require anything of you. It's a posture. Hope puts you on the spot. I think it's uncomfortable to be put on the spot. It's not a position people like to be in. At least in cynicism, you feel like you're doing something. You feel like you're fighting back. But feeling helpless, as we are helpless against the just the truth of suffering. Acceptance and hope and effort and toil is our destiny. So tonight, thank you for letting me experiment. Little double episode for you. I'll be uploading tomorrow, Friday, June 20th. It's my dad's birthday. So I know he's not listening to this, but my mom does. So tell him I said happy birthday. Thanks, Mom. All right. Y'all, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this little experiment. I'll see you back again for the Noble Eightfold Path. Bye, y'all.